Hello, welcome to math class. Today we are starting a new lesson. So today's lesson is lesson 6-9. We are going to be measuring angles. Now I know you already watched the video on measuring angles with a protractor, but there are a few things I want to point out to you. Now, just like in the video, this week we are going to be using this half circle protractor. It's a half circle because if we were to put this and flip it down, it would make a full circle. So we are using a half circle protractor. You may have seen or heard of other ones. There are full circle ones and different ones, but the ones we are going to be using are half circles. Now, the interesting thing about this half circle protractor is that it's a double scale, meaning this. If you see here on the inside, we are going from 0 to 180 because half of a circle is 180 because 180 plus 180 is 360, full circle. But we also have on the outside another 0 to 180. There's a 0 here, 180 here, a 0 here, 180 here. So this is where protractors get a little bit confusing. But if you stop and think for a minute, you will be able to use protractors pretty easily, although this can be a little bit tricky. Now, one thing, I have posted a link for this protractor. When you print out the protractor, it'll be on a full sheet of paper. You have to cut out the protractor, so you want to carefully cut it out on the top and the bottom. But you also have to cut out in here, because if you don't, you won't be able to see the angle through here, and you won't be able to measure. All right, so we have this protractor. Now, to measure angles, you need to do three things. One, you need to think of the type of angle. Is the type of angle you're measuring acute, right, or obtuse? Because that will depend on what numbers you use in here. Okay, now if it's an acute angle, it's between 0 and 89 degrees. If it's a right angle, it's exactly 90 degrees. And if it's obtuse, it's between 90 and 180 degrees. It won't go more than that. And those are the three angles we're going to be working with these next 2 days. Okay, so once you figure out, okay, what type of angle do I have? You're going to do two things. See this here? In class, if we were actually in school, we would have a dot in the middle of ours protractor, but we aren't. So we're going to use this, and this line is where we're going to line up the vertex, and I'll show you in a second. And this line down here is where we're going to line up the baseline. So if you're like, what is she talking about with vertex and baseline? Let me show you. Okay, I'm back. Now I know this may be a little hard because if I were in class, I'd be doing this on the Elmo. Okay, so what I have here is I have 3 practice problems to show you. So my face is going to be going in and out because I'm trying to get really close to show these problems. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is how to use this to measure. So you're going to notice that I made this angle really long, and I'll explain why in a second. So when you're measuring, you always want to hold your protractor straight. You never want to measure it like this, never upside down like this. You always want to measure it where you can read your numbers with it straight. So you always keep it straight. Now remember I said line this up with the vertex? Now remember, the vertex is where 2 angles come together. Okay? Or 2 rays. I'm sorry, not 2 angles, 2 rays. Here is one ray, and here is the other. So this is the vertex. I'm going to line this line up with the middle of this vertex, almost like I'm cutting it in half. Okay? Now, remember how I said the baseline? This line on the bottom is the baseline. That needs to be matched up with here. So watch me. I put this right in the middle, and I'm resting this line here. Okay? Now, do you see how my arrow's pointing to the right? That's the number that I start at. So I am starting going to the right, and I would never, do I start counting at 180? No, I don't. I start counting at 0. So look, my arrow's pointing this way. Okay? Well, it's my right. Okay? So I have this lined up, and I start. And I go. Now this is going to be a little off because it's hard to do not straight. And I start at 0. Now, before I start, what type of angle is this? This is an acute angle. So I know my angle cannot be more than 89 degrees. Okay? So once again, I'm lining it up in the middle, letting it lay on this baseline. I start at 0. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now, I'm coming right into here, and my angle is cutting right in. Now, it would be nice if we had little tick marks down here, but on this protractor, we don't. So, I'm looking up here, and I know this is 60, and it's going to 1, 2. The tick mark is going to right here. So, this is 62 degrees. Now, a couple things. You may not get the exact number. When we're doing angles, you have a 2-degree marginal of error, meaning if you said 60 degrees, I would accept it. If you said 64, I'm adding 2 degrees, I would accept it. But if you said 70 degrees, that's really off. Now, the one thing you might be thinking is this. Well, why didn't you use the number 120? Well, if this is an acute angle, I know my angle has to be less than 89 degrees. So if it's less than 89 degrees, I couldn't use this 120. I had to use the 60. Now, let's try it again, but take a look. See how this angle isn't very straight? I need to tilt this a little. So what I'm going to do, I'm looking at this type. Now I know going to here is 90 degrees. This is more than a 90-degree angle. So the type of angle I have here is an obtuse angle. So I know that this angle has to be more than 90 degrees, but it can't go over 180. So it has to be between 90 and 180 degrees. Okay, it's a little diagonal. So I'm going to line this up here, and I'm going to make sure this is straight on my baseline. So I'm lining it up here, and it's straight on my baseline. Now, my arrow's pointing this way. So I'm going this way. I'm starting at 0. So I always start at 0. So now look what numbers I'm using. I'm using the outside numbers. 0. Now, this is my problem. Can I see where this is going up to in here? I can't. And so what you're going to do is this. You're going to take a ruler or straight edge. I know it's crazy. I don't have a ruler here. Can't find one. So I'm using an index card. And what I am doing is I'm taking this index card, laying it up to my line. Now you have to be really careful. I may take a little while to do this because it has to match perfectly, or as perfectly as I can. And I need to get this line, and I need to extend it. And you can extend it really far. I don't care how far out you extend it. You want to make sure when you extend this line, you do it so that when I get my protractor and I place this line on the vertex and this baseline on the bottom, I need to make sure it's really straight, or else it's going to mess me up. Ooh, this is better now. The line is going farther in, and it's actually coming out right here. Okay. So if you need to go back, make your line. I don't care if you make your line all the way off this paper. It doesn't bother me. So I know I'm starting at 0, and I'm going all the way around, and it goes to right here. So I'm at 120, 121, 122, 123, 124. Ooh, it is at this line 125. So I have two choices. It can either be 125 or 55. If it's an obtuse angle, it's going to be 125 degrees. So remember, I extended this line because if I didn't, I couldn't tell how far this line was going. So I extended my line. I also know it's an obtuse angle, so it had to be more than 90. So that's why it's 125 and not right here between 50 and 60 at 55. Okay, now this last one, if you look, see how it's like a V? If I hold my protractor like this, can I measure this? No, so do you know what I actually have to do? Turn my paper. You can turn it any way you want. You could turn it this way, or you can turn it this way. I'm choosing to turn mine this way. So I'm just going to tape this because I am going upside down and it's a little hard for me. I turn my paper, and that's what I'm recommending you to do. If you need to turn your paper, turn your paper. Now look, this is a small angle. Is there any way that this line is going to get there? No. I know I'm using this as my baseline, so I only have to extend this one angle, and I'm going to extend it really far. I'm going to be a little bit dramatic here, and I'm only going to be dramatic so it works. Now, I have to really line this up, so don't do anything until you see if it lines up. Okay, look at how far I'm extending this. So you may say, oh, that's ridiculous. But hey, I'm just making sure I extend it long enough so I can see it. Okay, so now I'm thinking, this line on my vertex where the two rays meet, this line has to be on my baseline really straight. Now, I have to ask myself, what kind of angle is this little guy? This is an acute angle. So I know it has to be between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay? Keep that in mind. My arrow's going this way. I line up my vertex, and I put this bottom line laying right on this line. Almost, it's like It's like it's catching it. Now, my arrow's going this way, so I'm going to head over here, and I'm always going to start at 0. 0, 10, 20, 30. It's almost at 40. Now, if I come up to the top, it's easier. Every one of these little tick marks is 1 degree because between 30 and 40, there's 10 tick marks. So I'm at 30, 30 here, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, because I'm at 38, and then there's 2 more tick marks to get to here. Now, I'm between 30 and 40, not 140 and 50. That's too big. So I'm at 38 because I'm 2 away from 40 because this is 140 with 40. So this is 38 degrees. Now, if you're saying, oh my goodness, this seems really hard, protractors are a little bit tricky, but I know you can do it if you make sure your paper is straight. Be really careful. This line matches up to your vertex. This goes on your baseline, and really extend the one ray so you can see how it goes. Now remember, if you didn't get 38 degrees, but you got 35, I would accept it. But if you got 50 degrees, if you were 12 degrees away, I'm not going to accept that. I may say to you, let's look. If you're a little bit off like that, you may have this line lined up good, but if this doesn't lay on the vertex, see how there's a little bit of line here, and you do it this way, you're going to be off, and you may say, not by a lot, but you may be off by like 10 degrees on that in the end. Okay. Now, today's practice, you're going to be doing online. So you're not going to actually need this today. But I wanted to show you to remind you when you're doing today's lesson to match your vertex with the middle and keep it on the baseline. Okay. And if you're ever confused, what number do I use? Ask yourself, is it an acute angle or is it obtuse? I know you can do it. The website is actually really user-friendly. I played some games on it. So play on there. You have 12 problems. Then you're going to let me know, either take a picture of your screen on how you did, or you can, on the doc, you can put your score, and then you'll have some reflection questions. Okay? You can do it. I know you can. I miss you all, but good luck.